What would you do if your billionaire son refused to marry and you decided to take matters into your own hands? Meet Mrs. Yankey, a wealthy, powerful mother who hides her identity and pretends to be a cleaner at her son's company, all to secretly find him the perfect wife. But things take an unexpected turn when she meets Alisa, a humble, kind-hearted young woman who might just be the one, or so she thinks. Behind every smile, there are secrets. Behind every choice, there are consequences. This is a story of love, betrayal, and redemption, where one decision could change everything forever. Stay with us till the end, because what starts as a sweet love story will soon take a dark, suspenseful turn. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next episode. The soft click of high heels echoed down the long, polished hallway of Yankey Enterprises. Gifty Yankey, a woman in her late 50s, with sharp eyes and an even sharper mind, carefully adjusted the frayed apron around her waist. To the outside world, she was just another cleaning lady at her son's company, but in reality, her mission was far from ordinary. Richard Yankey, her son, was a billionaire. He had everything: power, influence, and wealth. But there was one thing he didn't have: a wife. Gifty had always believed that Richard's success was somehow incomplete without a woman by his side. As the years passed and his business empire grew, her concern deepened. Her only son was far too focused on numbers, stocks, and meetings, and too uninterested in the kind of companionship that might soften his heart. Gifty knew what had to be done. She was going to find the perfect woman for Richard, but she wasn't going to do it the usual way. No. Gifty had a plan that was more subtle, more effective. She had recently gotten herself hired as a cleaner at Yankey Enterprises, a position she had no need for, but one that would allow her to observe the employees up close. She would move in the shadows, carefully watching each woman who worked at the company, searching for one who could become the future Mrs. Yankey. Today, like every day, Gifty went about her work methodically. She dusted the furniture, wiped down the glass windows, and emptied the trash cans. All the while, her eyes darted between the employees as they walked in and out of their offices, carrying out their busy lives. And that was when she saw her, Alisa. Alisa West, a young woman in her early 20s, had just stepped into the office lobby. She wore a simple blouse and skirt, but there was an undeniable grace in the way she moved. Alisa had a warm smile, one that could light up a room, and her laughter was like a melody that made even the most mundane tasks seem bearable. Gifty couldn't help but notice how easily Alisa interacted with her colleagues, radiating kindness with every word she spoke. But as Gifty watched her from behind the mop and bucket, something in Alisa's eyes seemed off. There was a shadow lurking behind the surface, a glimmer of worry or uncertainty, perhaps. Gifty knew better than anyone that appearances could be deceiving. After all, she herself had worn many masks in her life, masks of wealth, influence, and status. But beneath it all, she understood the importance of character. Was Alisa truly the kind-hearted soul she appeared to be, or was there more to her story? Gifty decided to find out. She followed Alisa discreetly through the hallways, keeping her distance. As Alisa sat down at her desk and opened her laptop, Gifty silently observed her from behind a nearby potted plant. She noted the way Alisa interacted with her colleagues, always polite, always considerate. Yet, there was something else in her demeanor, a kind of desperation, perhaps? Or was it just a sign of the pressures she faced? Gifty wasn't sure yet, but she was determined to find out. Mrs. Yankey's determination was not something to be taken lightly. Beneath her prim exterior, Gifty was a woman with a fierce will. She'd raised Richard to be the man he was, molding him into a shrewd businessman with a sharp mind, just like his mother. But somewhere along the way, her son had drifted away from the idea of marriage. The people Gifty encountered in high society were no match for her son. They were either too focused on their own ambitions or far too superficial to see Richard for the man he truly was. Richard wasn't interested in marriage to someone just because they had a title or a fortune. He needed someone genuine, someone who could bring out the best in him. Gifty had spent years trying to introduce him to potential wives, rich daughters of her business friends, well-bred young women from aristocratic families, but nothing had worked. Richard had politely rejected them all, focusing solely on his business empire. Gifty had begun to worry that Richard would never find the right woman, that he would remain alone, buried under his mountain of success, with no one to share it with. But now there was hope. Alisa might just be the one. She was kind, hardworking, and unpretentious. Everything Gifty wanted in a woman for her son. Still, Gifty couldn't afford to be impulsive. She would need to get closer to Alisa, to understand her better, before she could make her move. The next morning, as Gifty mopped the hallway floor, she overheard a conversation between Alisa and another colleague. "Have you heard about the new merger?" Alisa's voice was light, almost excited. "Yes," replied her colleague. "Richard Yankey is about to make a major deal with the Johnson Group. It could double the company's profits overnight." Alisa smiled, but there was something about the smile that seemed strained. Gifty took note of it. She wondered whether Alisa was truly happy in her position, or if she was only pretending to be. The cleaner in her apron continued with her tasks, pretending to focus on her work, but her mind was racing. If Alisa were to become a part of the Yankey family, what kind of woman would she really be? Gifty had seen so many people hide their true selves behind polite facades, and she wasn't about to let that happen with her son's future. Gifty decided to keep watching, to observe more closely. She had to be certain. It wasn't long before Gifty had her first real conversation with Alisa. It happened one quiet afternoon when Alisa was the last one to leave the office. "Excuse me, miss," Gifty said as she approached Alisa, who was gathering her things from her desk. Alisa looked up, startled at first, but then her expression softened. "Oh, it's you. I didn't realize you were still here." "I'm always here," Gifty replied with a smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. "I just wanted to say, you have such a warm energy about you. It's rare to see someone as kind as you in such a big company." Alisa blushed at the compliment. "Thank you. That's very kind of you to say." Gifty gave a small nod. "I've noticed how you handle things around here. People really like you. It's not always easy to make that kind of impression." Alisa shrugged modestly. "I just try to be myself. I'm grateful for the job." The conversation was brief, but it gave Gifty a glimpse into Alisa's character. There was something genuine about her, something that suggested Alisa wasn't just trying to climb the corporate ladder. She was down to earth and seemed to care about those around her. Gifty couldn't help but think that maybe, just maybe, this was the woman who could bring balance and light into her son's life. Days turned into weeks, and Gifty continued her quiet observation. She wasn't just looking for a woman who could be a good match for Richard. No, she wanted to make sure that whoever became a part of the Yankey family could handle the weight of it all, the pressure, the expectations, and the power. Alisa seemed to be the type of woman who could withstand such pressure. She didn't seem intimidated by the glitzy world of Yankey enterprises. She didn't chase after status or riches. Instead, she took pride in her work, helping clients with care, and staying humble even in the midst of praise. Gifty began to warm to Alisa, and her plan to bring the two together started to take shape. She arranged casual, unplanned encounters, like meeting in the elevator or sharing a coffee during break. Each time, they talked a little more, and Gifty learned more about Alisa's life. The young woman had grown up in a modest home, raised by a single mother, and had worked hard to earn her place at Yankey Enterprises. Alisa spoke about her struggles with a quiet resilience that impressed Gifty. But there was still something hidden beneath Alisa's calm exterior. Gifty knew that people rarely showed their true selves all at once. If she was going to find the right match for Richard, she would need to dig deeper. And Gifty was more than willing to dig. It was a typical Thursday morning at Yankey Enterprises when Alisa received a call that would change everything. She had been working late the previous evening, preparing a presentation for a high-profile client. She had barely had time to eat, let alone rest, but as always, she carried on. Her dedication to her work was one of the reasons Gifty had become so interested in her. She had the right kind of drive. But when Alisa's phone buzzed with a message from Emma, her best friend from childhood, a shiver ran down her spine. Emma's messages always carried a sense of urgency. This one was no different. "Alisa, I need to see you. Urgent. I've got a plan that will change everything for you. Meet me at the usual place." Alisa hesitated. She hadn't seen Emma in over a month. Her friend had been distant, unpredictable, and frankly, Alisa didn't know what to expect anymore. But Emma had always been the type of person who got what she wanted. And now it seemed she wanted something from Alisa. With a deep sigh, Alisa locked her desk and slipped out of the office to meet Emma at their old cafe on the corner, a place they had spent hours during their teenage years, dreaming of a better life. The cafe was bustling with activity, but the moment Alisa entered, she spotted Emma sitting at a secluded table by the window. Emma looked different, her once carefree demeanor now replaced with a cold, calculating energy. She was dressed in a sleek black jacket, her makeup more dramatic than usual, and her eyes glinted with an unsettling intensity. "Alisa!" Emma greeted, her voice low and urgent. "You look, well, tired, but still as pretty as ever." Alisa forced a smile. "What's going on, Emma? You said it was urgent." Emma leaned forward, her expression turning serious. "It is. I've got an opportunity for you. A chance to change everything." She paused, studying Alisa's face as if weighing her reaction. "You're working at Yankey Enterprises, right? And I know you're struggling, always working hard, always trying to make ends meet. But guess what? There's an easy way out." Alisa frowned, unsure where this conversation was heading. "What are you talking about?" Emma's smile was sly. "I know about the money. The money that Richard Yankey keeps in that secret closet of his office. It's just sitting there, waiting for someone to take it." Alisa's heart skipped a beat. "You're talking about stealing from him?" Emma nodded, as if the idea was nothing more than a casual suggestion. "It's not stealing, Alisa. It's taking what's owed to you. Think about it. You've worked so hard. You deserve more. And this could be your chance to finally get out of this life of struggle." Alisa recoiled at the thought. The mere suggestion of betraying the man who had given her a job, a chance at something better, made her feel sick to her stomach. "I can't do that, Emma. I can't steal from him. He's been good to me." Emma's eyes narrowed. "You think Richard Yankey cares about you? Don't kid yourself, Alisa. He's not going to notice. He's too busy with his business deals and his fancy meetings. And you're just another employee to him. You think he's going to remember your name in a year? You think he's going to give you a promotion?" Alisa opened her mouth to protest, but Emma cut her off. "Look, I'm just telling you the truth. You can keep working yourself to the bone, struggling like always, or you can take control of your life. All I'm asking is that you take a little something for yourself. No one will know. It'll change everything for you." Alisa sat back in her seat, torn. The pressure in her chest grew heavier with every passing second. Her mind raced with conflicting thoughts. She had always prided herself on doing things the right way, but Emma's words felt like a temptation she couldn't ignore. The thought of finally being free from financial worry was intoxicating. And the money wasn't really Richard's, was it? It was just a small part of his massive fortune, something he wouldn't even miss. As if reading her thoughts, Emma leaned in closer. "You're not alone in this, Alisa. I'll help you. I always help you. You don't have to do it alone." The next day at work, Alisa couldn't focus. Emma's words kept echoing in her mind, and the more she thought about it, the more she wondered if this could be her only chance to escape. She had been stuck in the same rut for years, working late hours for a small paycheck, trying to make ends meet. Maybe this was the opportunity she had been waiting for. Her mind raced as she made her way to the restroom. There, in the mirror, she saw herself, tired, weary, and worn from years of struggle. She felt something stirring inside her, a dangerous temptation that was hard to ignore. But just as quickly as the thought appeared, Alisa pushed it away. She couldn't let herself fall into this. She had to do the right thing. She had to resist. For the rest of the day, Alisa tried to push thoughts of the money out of her mind. She focused on her work, answering calls, drafting reports, and interacting with clients. But when she passed Richard's office on her way to the printer, something inside her faltered. His door was slightly ajar, and through the crack, she saw him sitting at his desk, deep in conversation with an executive. Richard Yankey, handsome, powerful, and completely unaware of the storm that was brewing under his roof. It wasn't like Alisa had never thought about the money before. She had heard rumors around the office about the large sums Richard kept in that hidden closet of his. No one really knew what was in there, but it was said to be a place where Richard stored things of great personal value, things that no one else was allowed to touch. As the day wore on, the thought of that closet kept gnawing at her. What if she could just take a little? What if she could slip away unnoticed, take a few $1,000s and change her life? The temptation was overwhelming. And then, that evening when Alisa was alone in the office, the opportunity came. It was late, much later than most of her colleagues. The office was quiet except for the hum of the air conditioning and the distant clicking of keyboards in other rooms. Alisa walked down the hallway toward Richard's office, her footsteps echoing in the otherwise empty space. She was supposed to be finalizing a report, but her mind was elsewhere. Emma's words rang in her ears. "It's your chance, Alisa. Just do it. No one will notice." Her heart pounded as she reached the door to Richard's office. The door was still ajar, just like it had been earlier that day. She glanced around the hallway. No one was in sight. She pushed the door open just wide enough to slip inside. Richard wasn't there. The office was empty, and everything was as it had been earlier, neat and organized. But the closet in the corner called to her. The closet was locked, but Alisa knew how to open it. She had seen Richard use the code before when he left for business trips. She had never paid much attention to it, but now it seemed so simple. Just a little. Just enough to change everything. With trembling hands, Alisa entered the code, and the lock clicked open. Inside, there were stacks of cash, neatly organized in binders, along with other valuable items, documents, jewelry, and more. It was everything Emma had described. Alisa stood frozen, staring at the money. Her heart was racing. This was it. She could take what she needed, close the door, and no one would ever know. Richard would never miss it. But as her hand hovered over the pile, she heard a noise, footsteps approaching the office. Alisa quickly slammed the door shut, her heart thudding in her chest. She backed away, trying to steady her breath. She couldn't afford to be caught. Not now. She hurried to her desk, attempting to look calm and collected as she picked up the phone. But her mind was still reeling. What had she just almost done? Was she really willing to sacrifice everything for a few $1,000s? The next morning, Alisa couldn't shake the events of the night before. She kept replaying the image of Richard's office in her mind. The neatly arranged stacks of cash, the precious items locked away for safekeeping. She could still feel the weight of temptation in her chest, pulling at her. But she had resisted. She hadn't taken anything. She had done the right thing. She reminded herself over and over. Yet the memory of the opportunity haunted her, and a small part of her wondered what would have happened if she had just grabbed a few bills. No one would have noticed. No one would have cared. But Alisa knew better than to get lost in those thoughts. She was determined to stay focused. Her career at Yankey Enterprises was everything she had worked for, and she wasn't going to throw it away for a fleeting temptation. That morning, as she walked into the building, she passed Richard in the lobby. He was on the phone, his usual businesslike demeanor apparent, his sharp gaze scanning the room like a hawk. For a brief moment, their eyes met. Alisa froze, her pulse quickening. Richard didn't say anything. He didn't even acknowledge her presence, but she couldn't help but feel a small spark of connection. She had spent months working at Yankey Enterprises, but this was the first time she'd really noticed how intense his presence was. He wasn't just the CEO of the company, he was a force of nature, a man who commanded respect without even trying. As she walked past him, she felt a strange pull, something that made her heart race and her stomach twist. Was it admiration, or was it something else? But before she could dwell on it, she noticed something that stopped her in her tracks. A small slip of paper had fallen from Richard's jacket pocket onto the floor. Alisa bent down and picked it up. It was a note, a simple note, but the words written on it made her blood run cold. "You're not the only one watching. Be careful what you do next." Alisa's fingers trembled as she read the cryptic message. She looked around, but Richard was already walking away, completely unaware of what had just happened. Her mind raced. What did this mean? Who could have left this note? Was it about her? Could someone have seen her in the office last night? Could someone know what she had almost done? The thought made her feel sick. She quickly shoved the note into her pocket, her stomach churning. She couldn't be sure, but she had to assume the worst. Someone was watching. And now, Alisa's life was about to change in ways she never imagined. Later that day, Alisa received a strange phone call. It was from an unknown number, one she didn't recognize. She debated whether to answer it, but something compelled her to pick up the phone. "Hello," she said, her voice hesitant. "Alisa West," a voice on the other end of the line asked, smooth and calm. It was a voice she didn't recognize, but there was something chilling about it. "Yes, who's this?" "This is Mr. Hayes," the voice replied. "I'm concerned about your actions." Alisa's breath caught in her throat. "What do you mean?" "You're under observation, Miss West. We've been watching you closely," Mr. Hayes said, his tone now colder. "We know what you were planning. We know what you almost did last night." Alisa's heart pounded in her chest. Her hands gripped the edge of her desk as she tried to steady her breath. How did they know? Who were these people? "I'm not sure what you're talking about," Alisa stammered, hoping her voice didn't betray her. Mr. Hayes chuckled, a sound that sent chills down her spine. "Oh, I think you do. And I think you know what happens next." Before Alisa could respond, the line went dead. She sat there, frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear. Her mind raced, trying to make sense of the conversation. Who was this Mr. Hayes? How could he possibly know what had happened in Richard's office? The weight of the situation crashed down on her. She hadn't just been tempted by the money. She had crossed a line, and now there were consequences. Someone out there knew what she had almost done, and they weren't going to let it go. The rest of the day was a blur. Alisa tried to focus on her work, but her thoughts kept drifting to the mysterious phone call. She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. She wasn't sure who Mr. Hayes was or what he wanted, but his warning felt too real to ignore. That afternoon, Gifty noticed that something was off about Alisa. The young woman was distracted, her usually bright eyes clouded with worry. Gifty had been observing her for days, and she knew something was wrong. Alisa's demeanor had changed. "Is everything all right, Miss West?" Gifty asked, her voice gentle as she approached Alisa's desk. Alisa looked up, startled. She forced a smile, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. "Oh, Mrs. Yankey. I'm fine, just tired." Gifty studied her for a moment, sensing that there was more to the story. "You know, you don't have to put on a brave face for me. If something's bothering you, you can talk about it." Alisa hesitated. There was something about Gifty that made her feel at ease, but even so, she wasn't sure if she could trust her with the truth. She barely knew the woman. After all, Gifty was just a cleaner at the company, wasn't she? But there was also a part of her that yearned for guidance, for someone to tell her what to do. She felt lost, alone, caught in a situation that was spiraling out of control. I don't know what to do," Alisa whispered, her voice barely audible. Gifty leaned in closer, lowering her voice. "Whatever it is, you don't have to go through it alone. Tell me what's going on, and maybe I can help." Alisa glanced around the office. No one was watching, but she still lowered her voice. I almost did something terrible. I almost stole from Mr. Yankey. I was going to take money from his office, but I didn't. I stopped myself. But someone knows. Someone's been watching me. Gifty's eyes widened in surprise, but she didn't show judgment. Instead, her expression softened with understanding. Alisa, what you're feeling right now is fear. But you have to remember, you can still make things right. You don't have to let this moment define you. Alisa blinked back tears. I don't know what to do, Mrs. Yankey. There's a man, Mr. Hayes, and he knows. He warned me. Gifty's mind was already working, piecing together the puzzle. She had been watching Alisa closely for weeks, and now it was clear that the young woman was more involved in something dangerous than Gifty had initially realized. Gifty knew that if she was going to help Alisa and protect her son's company, she would need to act fast. You don't have to worry, Alisa. You have people who care about you. You're not alone in this, Gifty said softly. But in her mind, Gifty was already forming a plan. She needed to get to the bottom of this, and fast. As the days went by, the tension in the office grew. Alisa couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every time she passed Richard's office or walked through the hallways, she felt a prickle on the back of her neck. She knew she needed to act, but she didn't know who to trust. Gifty was kind, but was she truly on her side? And then there was Mr. Hayes, the mysterious man who had threatened her. Who was he, and what did he want? And through it all, Alisa couldn't forget the note. The words, "Be careful what you do next," echoed in her mind, sending a wave of dread over her every time she thought about it. She knew one thing for certain. Her life was no longer just about surviving in the corporate world. It had become a game of survival in a much darker, more dangerous world, one that she hadn't even realized existed. But Alisa was determined. She would not be broken, not by the pressure, not by the temptation, and certainly not by the shadow that loomed over her now. As the days passed, the stakes only grew higher, and Alisa would soon realize that her choices would lead her down a path from which there would be no turning back. Alisa's life had been turned upside down in the past few days. The weight of the phone call from Mr. Hayes still lingered on her mind. She couldn't escape the feeling that someone, somewhere, was always watching her. But who? And why? She had spent the last few nights lying awake in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the whispers in her head. Despite her best efforts to move forward, she couldn't ignore the nagging questions that kept swirling in her thoughts. It was early Monday morning when the knock came at her apartment door. Alisa wasn't expecting anyone. She opened the door cautiously, only to find a well-dressed man standing in front of her. His sharp suit and dark sunglasses made him look like he stepped out of a business thriller. But it wasn't his appearance that made Alisa's heart race. It was the eerie calmness in his eyes. "Alisa West?" he asked, his voice smooth, as if he had rehearsed the question. "Why, yes." Alisa stammered, instinctively stepping back from the door. The man smiled, a cold, unsettling smile. "I've been asked to give you a message." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small black envelope. "This is for you." Alisa took the envelope, her fingers trembling. The man didn't say another word. He simply turned and walked away, disappearing down the hallway as if he hadn't even been there. Heart pounding, Alisa closed the door and hurried to her small kitchen table. She ripped open the envelope, revealing a single piece of paper inside. It was a simple note, but its message chilled her to the bone. "You can't run from your past. It will catch up with you. Soon." Alisa's blood ran cold. Who had sent this? Was it from Mr. Hayes? Or was there someone else pulling the strings? She felt trapped in a web she couldn't escape. The pressure was mounting, and she could feel it closing in. Back at Yankey Enterprises, Alisa tried to focus on her work, but the note haunted her every second. Every time her phone buzzed or someone walked past her desk, she jumped. But then something unexpected happened. "Gifty, the mother of the company's CEO, approached her with a kind smile, her usual warm, welcoming demeanor now tinged with something deeper. "Alisa," she began, lowering her voice as she sat down across from her. "I've been meaning to talk to you. I think we need to have a little conversation." Alisa's heart skipped. Was Gifty aware of the pressure she was under? Did she know about the mysterious note? And if she did, what could she possibly want? "Of course, Mrs. Yankey," Alisa replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "What's on your mind?" Gifty leaned in closer, her tone dropping to a confidential whisper. "You're not the only one who's been caught up in a situation, my dear. I know what you're going through." Alisa blinked in confusion. "What do you mean?" Gifty smiled, but it was a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "I've been watching you, and I know you've been struggling with temptation. But there's something you need to understand, Alisa. This company, this family, it's not what it seems." Alisa frowned. "What do you mean?" Gifty glanced around the office to make sure no one was listening. "There's a reason I've been working here for so long. A reason I've stayed hidden in the shadows. My son, he has enemies, Alisa. People who will stop at nothing to destroy him, to take everything he's built. And those people will use anyone they can find to do it." Alisa felt a chill crawl up her spine. "Are you saying someone is after Richard?" Gifty nodded slowly. "It's not just Richard they're after. It's everything, his fortune, his legacy. And I believe you've already been drawn into their game." Alisa's mind raced. Had she? Was this what Mr. Hayes had meant when he warned her? Was she just a pawn in someone else's plan? Later that afternoon, as Alisa walked out of the office building, she noticed something odd. A man in a dark coat was standing across the street, leaning against a lamppost. He seemed to be watching her, his eyes fixed on her every movement. Alisa quickened her pace, but the man didn't move. He just stood there, staring at her. She could feel the weight of his gaze, as if he knew everything about her. Suddenly, her phone buzzed in her pocket, interrupting the eerie moment. It was a text message from an unknown number. "I see you. Don't make any sudden moves. You're already in too deep." Alisa's breath caught in her throat. This was getting out of control. The feeling of being watched had never been so real. But just as she was about to turn around and confront the stranger, the man vanished into the crowd, as if he had never been there at all. As the days passed, Alisa couldn't shake the feeling that her life was spiraling out of control. The more she tried to move forward, the more the shadows from her past seemed to close in on her. That night she couldn't sleep. Her mind was racing with questions about Gifty, about Mr. Hayes, and about the strange man who seemed to know everything about her. She needed answers, and she needed them fast. It was then that a thought crossed her mind, a dangerous, risky thought. What if she could find someone who knew what was really going on? Someone who could help her make sense of all this. She thought back to Emma, her childhood friend, the one who had initially planted the idea of taking the money from Richard's office. Maybe Emma knew more than she had let on. Maybe she was involved in something much bigger. With a sense of determination, Alisa pulled out her phone and dialed Emma's number. "Hello." Emma's voice sounded casual, but Alisa could tell she was expecting this call. "I need to talk to you," Alisa said, her voice steady. "I need your help." The next day, Alisa met Emma at their old cafe, the place where they had spent hours as teenagers, dreaming of a better life. But this time the atmosphere was different. There was no laughter, no easy conversation, just tension. Emma looked different. Her eyes were harder, her smile more forced. The carefree girl Alisa had once known was gone. "What's going on, Alisa?" Emma asked, her voice low. Alisa didn't waste any time. "I think I'm in trouble, Emma. I think someone's watching me. I don't know what to do." Emma leaned back in her chair, eyeing Alisa with a mixture of curiosity and something darker. "You're in deeper than you think, aren't you? It's not just about money, Alisa. It's never been about money." Alisa's stomach twisted. "What do you mean?" Emma leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. There are people, powerful people, who've been pulling the strings from the very beginning. They've been watching you, Alisa. You've been part of something much bigger than you ever realized. Alisa's mind raced. Who are these people? And why me? Emma smiled, cold, knowing smile. Because you're the key, Alisa. You're the one who can bring it all down. Alisa's head spun as she processed Emma's words. Her childhood friend's confession made everything more complicated than ever. She had thought she was simply an innocent player in a game she didn't understand. But now she was hearing that she was at the center of something far darker. You're the key, Alisa, Emma repeated, her voice steady but chilling. They've been watching you for years. You didn't even know it, but you've always been part of their plan. Alisa leaned forward, her hands trembling on the table. Who are they? What plan? Emma looked over her shoulder, as if checking to see if anyone was listening. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. Have you ever wondered why Richard's company seems to be constantly under attack? Why people are always trying to undermine him? It's not just about competition. There's something bigger at play here. And you're a part of it. Alisa's heart skipped a beat. How am I involved in this? I'm just a secretary at Yankey Enterprises. Emma leaned back, folding her arms. You're not just a secretary, Alisa. You're a link, a connection. You're connected to Richard, and through him, you're connected to everything. The people after him are after what he represents: power, money, influence. And they want you to help them bring him down. Alisa could hardly breathe. Everything Emma said felt like a nightmare. But she couldn't ignore the fear creeping up her spine. I don't understand, she whispered. Why me? Because you have something they want, Emma said, her voice soft yet deadly. You have access. You know things that no one else knows. And Richard trusts you. Alisa recoiled, the weight of the realization sinking in. She had always felt like an outsider in the world of Yankey Enterprises. But this was different. She had always been careful to stay out of the company's dangerous games. But now it seemed like there was no way to escape. As the conversation with Emma continued, Alisa's mind struggled to make sense of everything. She wanted to believe it wasn't true, that Emma was just exaggerating, but deep down, she knew something bigger was happening. She could feel it. Emma reached into her bag and pulled out a folder. She slid it across the table to Alisa, who hesitated before opening it. Inside were documents, photos, contracts, notes, all leading back to Yankey Enterprises. Some of them had Richard's name on them. Others were more cryptic. This is just the beginning, Emma said. These documents show connections to powerful people. People who want to see Richard fail. People who are pulling the strings from the shadows. Alisa's eyes scanned the documents quickly, and her breath hitched. She saw names she recognized, people from Richard's circle, and others she didn't. But the one thing they all had in common was their connection to power and money. Alisa felt like she was looking at a map of a dangerous world she hadn't known existed. What do you want me to do with this? Alisa asked, her voice shaking. I want you to help me, Emma said, her tone low and intense. We need to expose this. You're the only one who can get close enough to Richard. You have his trust. You can find the information we need to take them down. Alisa stared at Emma, her heart pounding in her chest. This was a dangerous game Emma was proposing. Alisa wasn't sure she wanted to be a part of it, but deep down, she knew that she was already in too deep. I can't do this, Alisa said, shaking her head. I don't want to hurt Richard. I don't want to hurt anyone. Emma's expression hardened. You think you have a choice? This is bigger than you. They'll destroy everything you care about if you don't help us. Alisa felt the weight of Emma's words settle in her chest. It wasn't just about Richard anymore. It was about survival. If she didn't act, she might lose everything. As Alisa sat in her apartment, the weight of the decision crushed her. Emma had left her with a haunting question. What are you willing to risk to survive? Alisa stared at the folder on her table, the documents staring back at her like an invitation into a world she didn't understand. She thought about her life before all of this, the simple, quiet life she'd always wanted. But now it felt like everything she had ever known was slipping away. Suddenly, her phone buzzed. It was a text from Richard. "I need to see you. Can you come to my office in 30 minutes?" Her heart skipped. Richard never contacted her directly like this. She quickly typed a response, agreeing to meet him, though her mind raced with 1,000 possibilities. What did he want to talk to her about? Did he know what she had almost done? Or had someone already told him? Alisa arrived at Richard's office a few minutes early, her mind running through all the scenarios that could unfold. As she stood in front of his door, she hesitated, her hand hovering over the knob. This wasn't just any meeting. It felt like the moment everything would change. She opened the door slowly, her heart in her throat. Richard was standing by the window, staring out at the city skyline. When he turned and saw her, his eyes softened. "Alisa," he said, his voice calm but serious. "Come in. We need to talk." Alisa stepped inside, closing the door behind her. She could feel the weight of his gaze on her, but she couldn't read his expression. Was he angry? Concerned? Or was this just another meeting in the corporate world? "I wanted to speak with you about something important," Richard continued, his tone serious. "I've been noticing that you've been distant lately. Is everything all right?" Alisa's heart skipped. This was it, the moment she had been dreading. She tried to keep her voice steady. "I've been fine, Mr. Yankey," she said, keeping her eyes on the floor. "I've just had a lot on my mind." Richard stepped closer, his voice softening. "Alisa, I need you to trust me. If something's bothering you, you can tell me. You don't have to carry it alone." For a moment, Alisa was tempted to tell him everything, to confess her fears, her doubts, the pressure she had been feeling. But she couldn't bring herself to say the words. Not now, not when everything felt so uncertain. Instead, she forced a smile. "I'll be fine, Mr. Yankey. I appreciate your concern." Richard didn't look convinced, but he nodded. "All right, just remember, I'm here if you need anything." As Alisa left Richard's office, her mind was spinning. She had managed to hide her true feelings from him, but it felt like she was lying to herself. Richard was more than just her boss. He was someone she admired, someone who had always treated her with kindness. But now everything had changed. She was part of something dark, something dangerous, and she didn't know how to get out. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Emma. "We're moving forward with the plan. You need to decide if you're in or not. Time's running out." Alisa took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her decision pressing down on her. She had already crossed a line, but now the question was, could she go back? Or had she already sealed her fate? Mrs. Yankey believes she has finally found the perfect woman for her son. But is Alisa really who she seems to be? As secrets begin to surface and Richard grows closer to her, one unexpected threat will soon change everything. Will Alisa stay true to herself, or will she be forced down a path she never imagined? The real drama is just about to begin. Don't miss part 2 of this thrilling love and redemption story. Comment below. Do you think Alisa can be trusted? And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next episode.